Hello, everybody. Welcome to film number 4 of our Bones and Belongings returning. This week has been difficult, trying, and I've been sitting here this morning trying to work it out in my head. All the things that I've been feeling this week and experiencing this week, and I can put it down to Christian returning to the stars, and essentially all of his energetic trace has now left the building. And it's been a real period of readjustment for me, because I've been so used to having part of Christian still with me or still around in the physical. So yeah, obviously I found his final energy residue in Africa using a pendulum last week, or I reported last week, and we let that energy go. I was holding on to it, feeling very ill, and we let that go. And it literally I've had to readjust this week. And it reminds me a bit of, well, it does definitely remind me when we first realized that Christian was dead, and he got released, the first kind of release from his earthboundness. And I had been during that process, I had given him back some of his energy that I'd been holding since our childhood, because I was slightly older than him, so I was always had him as my little brother, part of me holding on to him, and he had part of me that he was holding on to, so we kind of exchanged energies. And that felt very strange, when you've been holding on to something for so long and it's just part of your makeup. It's, you're holding on to somebody else's energy, somebody else's soul part. You have an attachment. You're holding something that doesn't belong to you, and when it's released, it feels odd. So this week I've had a real pain. I've had pain in my root chakra. It's felt so pain, and sacral, like period pains, like real sort of spasms, like when you lose something and you're grasping for it, and that's kind of how it's felt. I felt untethered, and so I did some energy work on my chakras with Chris in the form he's in now, totally spirit, and with my guides, and we healed the root chakra, or cleared it, or calmed it down, and moved the energy up into the solar plexus, which is and it felt like a real attraction. So instead of Chris and I being maybe that's interesting, I've just seen it as in a different way. We've kind of moved the chakra that we're really attached to each other through, and that's now the sort of solar plexus. That's the so like a magnet, almost like the joint power that we have now. So it's not a sort of a security blanket. It's now a powerful joining together, which totally makes sense, because this week, so I've had the sort of physical readjustment, and I've seen it in my unbalancedness. At the beginning of the week, I started to attract unbalanced people into my life again, and that's something you need to watch out for, and experiences. And I just so if you are in an unbalanced state, you will attract fearful. If you're in a fear state, you will be attracting fear and anxiety towards you. And I've kind of had a reminder of that this week early on. So I was conscious of it. I was like, oh my goodness, okay, I'm out of balance here, so I need to regain the balance. So Chris and I, yeah, we've got that back in the solar plexus, so just at the top of his stomach, that there. And I also was asking Christian, like, what do we do now? What does it mean now? Because obviously that Africa, finding the bones and his belongings is now that's his work, and he's fully clear to do that. That's definitely his work, and I now have to sort of switch off from that, and I have to concentrate on what's right in front of me. So the big thing with sort of manifesting in the physical is knowing when to just sort of, yeah, consciously switch off from it, from what you desire, knowing that you've done everything you can energetically, you've done the hard work yourself to set it all in motion, and then you have to switch off and just like have faith that it's happened, or it's happening, and like you've done all that you can. And you hand it over to. So for example, another example of that is when I was searching for Christian back in 2016 on our social media search, so in digital physical searching for him, and it was all the red herrings, it was just brick walls everywhere. And in the end I just sat down and I was just like, God, please find him, because I know he's coming back to me. I've done all the work to be that beacon of light, and love, and I know he trusts me, and we've been interacting together on an energetic level. I know he's ready to come home, but I just can't physically do anything anymore to make that happen. And I just handed that over to God, to a higher power, and just sort of went off and did something else in my life, totally different. And then things started to happen that brought that conclusion, I guess, to Chris's death and to knowing about it. So finding him. So yes, firm believer in do all the work and then just know it's happening. So Africa to me is like it's happening. And Chris is project managing that, and he actually sent me a song, and it's from the movie Wakanda Forever, and it's a song called Coming Back for You. I don't know if any of you have listened to it, but it's basically, it says, look up to the sky and you'll see I'm coming back for you. You are never alone. Like I'll always be there for you. That song was just, and it made me cry. And it makes, in fact, that song really I guess encapsulates like the sadness, the longing, the that connection where you don't have physical connection anymore, but you still have the energetic and the spiritual connection. It's just such a beautiful song. Yeah, so I know he's kind of, that's Chris is on that side. So for the next couple of films, we won't talk about the bones and his bones and his belongings at all, knowing that he's onto that. So in my life, the signs that things are really happening. So while Africa's sort of seems quite separate to me at the moment, what's very much in focus to me is the signs that everything is possible for us. So all the projects that Chris and I have been talking about for years, all the all the things that we're going to co-create and we've been talking about, the signs are they are happening. So all the work that we are going to be doing for others and with others, it is happening. And I have a list of things that have been happening this week, which show me that the experiences are also coming to us in Raise as a community, and to me and Chris as this power couple almost now, this sibling power couple. So first of all, I had a book appear in my I was talking about it in my group, our group of Raise Rebirthers, and somebody had mentioned the Alchemist, the book, and by Paulo Coelho, that's how you pronounce his name. Anyway, I was looking on, because I haven't read the book, so I was looking on in the bookshop, and it wasn't there for whatever reason, but there was a book called, one of his, called The Manuscript of Accra. And Accra is in Ghana, and last week we talked a lot about Accra and Ghana, and I thought, oh well, this is the book for me because I like the signs. Anyway, it's all about he calls it it's classed as a novel, but it's not really. It's a collection of guidance really for this city, Accra, which are awaiting an attack by the Crusades. The Crusaders are coming, and there's a Greek who appears, and he is like a philosopher, is a giver of messages, and they basically ask him lots of questions about how do we cope with this impending chaos, how does love pull us through, all these kind of questions. And it just made me think, there were quite a few things that were written there, and I just thought, oh my goodness, like, life happens and you have to change with life. Love changes, your relationships change, everything changes, and you have to just, the basic idea behind the book, I felt, what I was reading it, is that you just have to allow change, and you have to trust, and you have to have faith in yourself, in love, and in the universe. Like, the universe has its rules, and if we know the universe's rules, then we can live by them and not be surprised by shocks and things that happen, because the universe loves to balance things out. It loves harmony, and we are always moving towards harmony. And a lot of things that happen, we look at them and think, oh my goodness, that's an awful thing to have happened. I'm not ready for this. I can't cope with this. But actually you can, and it's all part of your life and your spiritual growth, and civilization's spiritual growth. And we all have to be able to flow and adapt and change. And you can't stop things from happening. And anyway, reading that book, it just reminded me that, oh my goodness, this impending, what will look like chaos, what will throw us all, like myself, immediate family, all our Raise group, it will send tremors through us all, but it's happening for a reason, and we just have to have that faith in love and trust, and just move through it, allow it all to wash through us. And the other thing, there's a couple of things actually that were mentioned in, which are newsworthy, that have come through. There's this film on Disney Plus, which is just coming out, I think it's in the next couple of weeks. This man called Spencer Matthews, whose brother Michael went missing on, well, he didn't go missing, he died on Everest. And obviously up in Everest there's plenty of bodies that are up on the mountain, frozen, who are just like almost markers, way markers now. They can't be brought down off the mountain for whatever reason. Anyway, somebody had got in touch with the Matthews family, having been up Everest themselves, and emailed them and said, look, I think I know where Michael is. So it basically started this film is called Finding, I think it's just called Finding Michael. And it's a Disney Plus film, and this brother goes with a film crew and a Sherpa who was willing to actually go up onto the mountain and search. They had a drone, so they were searching for Michael, and obviously they haven't said exactly what's happened because you have to watch the film. But I just suddenly thought, oh my goodness, Chris and I have been talking about a film of finding him, finding his bones and belongings for so long. That's been part of the big vision. And it's almost like it's actually happening in the real world. It's like Disney Plus have commissioned this film, and that is the film. And it just gave me the chills, because I know it's possible. And once you know something's possible and you can see it happening around you, it's like it's coming towards you. So if you're watching this, and you're from Disney wouldn't go for another film. If you're from Netflix or from Amazon, or I don't know, the BBC, anyone who invests heavily in documentaries, we've got something very similar to Finding Michael. If that's what it's called, I must check. And then the other thing, also film wise, was a lady called Leslie Patterson, who is the screenwriter and basic driver behind the film that's just won lots of BAFTAs and is up for Grammys and Oscars, and it's All Quiet on the Western Front. It's a German subtitled film. Anyway, Leslie Patterson was a triathlete, and she bought the rights to, oh my gosh, she bought the rights to the book All Quiet on the Western Front, and she had to keep renewing the rights for years and years, and she spent hundreds of thousands of pounds renewing the rights for the book, because she had she'd co-written this film script, and she tried the LA, she tried Hollywood, couldn't get anybody interested in this film and the script. And then Netflix, the way that the funding or Netflix were looking for projects, and she just approached them. They were like, yeah, we've got off you go. After all that effort and all that time and money she'd spent, and just like in her heart she just knew that this project was meant to be made. Anyway, she's winning now all these awards for this film that she had this faith in. So I'm kind of being shown the film at the moment, whether it's a documentary, it feels like it's a documentary at the moment, and just following our story and how Raise Our Community came about, and how we're now supporting the release of all these stuck spirits. It started off with me and Chris doing our work, but it's now expanded further and further out. So it just feels like there's a lot of things that I'm being shown, these things are possible and it is going to happen. It's like it's Chris saying these things are going to happen. Yes, and I also have had lots of realizations this week. I'm just looking at one particular one, talking about starting the rescue with Christian. I actually don't think I started my rescue work with Christian at all. I had a realization this week. I was watching Ken Burns, who's a film documentary maker. He is on this channel called Masterclass. It's a website, and they have all these different experts or teaching lessons, like giving masterclasses. And I've been watching Ken Burns and his masterclass. And while I was watching one of the sessions, I had a sudden thought that when Christian first went off to Africa, so we're talking like early February, 2003, so just over 20 years ago, literally a few days later, I was living in Cornwall, southwest England, and I was in between jobs. I was like really lost is all I can say. I was kind of I had sort of low paying jobs, a couple of low paying jobs, but I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, and I couldn't find a job that I was interested in really. But I was applying for lots of jobs, and it was all a bit. Anyway, I was really interested in history, like the archives, the Cornish archives, which are in Redruth in Cornwall, which was like the mining town, one of the mining towns. And I went to the Cornish archives just to see what was going on there. I don't know why particularly, but I was drawn to there. And in there, within a few days of Chris going to Africa, I found, or they found me, maybe. I've got all the details here. I found the Cornwall Home for Destitute Little Girls. And I'll just read what it's like at the mission statement, I guess it had. So it was established in Falmouth in 1868, and it was supported by voluntary contributions, i.e. from the wealthy ladies and families in Falmouth and around Cornwall. It's a home afforded for destitute little girls who, through the misconduct and inability of their natural guardians, have been left to the charity of friends and who are trained for domestic service. Okay, open to visitors every Wednesday, 2 to 5 p.m. And all I can think of is that these were the first spirits that I was working with, that I was releasing. And I hadn't really ever thought about it before. But watching this Ken Burns, yeah, something he said about like the real small details are really important in documentary film. So you can mix the very small details with the bigger picture. And something about what he said, I thought, oh my goodness, interesting. I could actually start off our film, like Chris and I, we could start off our film with him going off to Africa and me actually starting my spirit rescue work without even knowing about it, without even knowing where our lives were going to end up or what we were going to end up doing. So basically I spent many hours in the in the archives going through all the documents that the archives held for this home for the little girls. And there were weekly meetings. They had all the minutes for those, and you just saw these little girls come in. I haven't got looked through all the details, but basically they were young little girls who the ladies of Cornwall, the big houses, would voluntarily give some money, and these children would be trained up, pardon me, for domestic service. And then when they were old enough, and no, not necessarily old enough, when they were efficient enough at their jobs, they would then go and be employed in the big houses in Cornwall. And when you followed these girls, these stories, some of them really stood out as being, there was one who was particularly difficult, who got up to all sorts of naughty things, and she obviously was just rebelling. She didn't want to be there, all part of this home. There were other tiny little girls who you could see their progress through. There were girls who stayed on as sort of under matrons, sub matrons, to look after these girls, and it felt like a nice place. It felt like there was no sort of abuse that I could really see. But I felt I could hear the girls, I could feel the girls, I could, like, they were telling me their story. And a lot about rescue mediumship, and as I found out with Christian, is telling their stories. They want to have their stories told. Like, these girls were orphans, they had no family, and nobody would have, well, they obviously did have family, but in some cases, but they weren't looking after them well. And like, when they would have died, their stories wouldn't have been passed on, and the only way their stories are passed on are in these meeting notes, in these archives. And yeah, they found me and they called me in when I was lost. Like, I something that came through this week for me was like, through rescuing yourself often involves the rescuing of other people. And I was like, well, yeah, because my rescue was essentially rescuing Christian, and it has also been possibly releasing, by telling their stories. This has allowed the little girls that I was talking with, it has allowed them to release this as well. So yeah, have a think about that. Especially if you're like feeling that lost, in that lost sense. And it's not like you go out and find somebody to help. Like, if you put the intention out, people will come to you for help. And it might be, I've always had people come to me for support, like being a ghostwriter. Before all this happened with Christian, I was continually being told stories that I didn't know I had the capacity to hold. I mean, some of these stories that were being told to me were horrendous. But by allowing people to just tell their stories, it released that energy, it released those stories and the energy. Yeah. And a lot of, and I realize now that everybody who came to me to have their story recorded had someone in spirit very, very close to the whole process. They would have called the person to me as part of their healing, allowing their loved one to tell the story. Because a lot of the times it was like the one in spirit was the one who had a negative, or not a negative effect, but had hugely affected the person's life, and caused the chaos, caused the loss. And I guess it was a way of being in spirit and allowing a healing to happen, which then allowed the person, the energy and spirit, to also release. Yeah, and I think I've been doing it with animals as well. The last big book I wrote is a book called Beastly London, and it was all about the animals of London past, and how all the animals had basically built London and influenced Londoners. And there's very little, they have very little acknowledgement. So my book was an apology to them, but also a way for them to tell their stories. And I know because I was working with a shaman at the time, and I know I was holding on to all their onto all of their energies, everyone that I'd read about, and any animal that I'd written about as well. But when you write a book, you need, like, actually, Ken Burns gave a brilliant metaphor. He said, for every gallon of maple syrup that you produce, you need to gather 40 gallons of the water or whatever syrup it is. So there's a huge amount of research that goes into writing a book that never gets onto the page. But I had to read everything and soak up all of their stories, and they were horrendous. I mean, Yeah, the innocence. It's almost like I've been helping the innocents all along, the ones, the underdogs, the innocents, the ones who didn't have a voice, like the little girls, the animals, and the spirits that are stuck who nobody wants to acknowledge anymore for what they've done in life. That's an interesting one. So yes, that's I've been doing this work an awfully lot longer than I had originally thought. So that was a big realization this week. And I've also realized this week that I'm what a strong position I'm in, and Chris is in, and our raise group. And last week, I've just taken it down before I came on air, but last week I pulled the Isis card, the Serpent of Fire, Priestess of the Serpent Sisterhood, and it was all about you realizing how much you have already and how powerful you are, and like really bringing that online. And I've got an amazing team around me, so I have to kind of explain this going back a bit. When Chris first went off to Africa, sorry, coffee. Yeah, so I was living in Cornwall with a partner at the time. And then after about a year, and probably just over a year, I felt lots of things happened and I couldn't stay in Cornwall anymore. So I came back to Sussex, where last week we were talking about the zero longitude. So I came home for a reason. But as Christian left my life in the physical, my husband came into my life. So it was almost like one relationship, like there was kind of like a support that came in instead, like Christian was replaced almost. And I've seen that happen so many times when a spirit, when a loved one dies, there's a support that's brought in. And my husband was actually somebody that I worked with for way before Christian went, even before he thought about going to Africa. And then I'd moved to Cornwall, and we'd kind of lost touch. We kind of kept in touch, but not in any way. We just work colleagues. So yeah, we were definitely he was definitely kind of brought in to replace Christian. That's how I see it. And there's a lady who's came into my life just a few weeks ago, and I immediately knew, you know how you meet some people and you just immediately know, oh my goodness, they are one of us, like I know them so well already. Anyway, she's come into raise, and immediately come into after a conversation with her on the phone, she's immediately come into our core team, because she's like already there with us. Anyway, she's just literally been like an angel sent. And that support has immediately just like so appreciative of what she's doing for us at the moment. And it turns out she had some very similar experiences that Christian and I have had. So I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but I'm not going to identify who she is. But her long-term relationship broke up, and then this and that's when she just during COVID, actually, or just before COVID. So there was all this sort of grief, everything through this COVID lockdown, and she started meditating as a way of finding herself and some stability again. And that's when the spirits came to her. But interestingly, her partner now, she had known previously as well. And I've been talking to her this week. He is very much like Christian in the terms of the needing to travel, needing to have space, needing to have like the freedom. I could just imagine Christian and his girlfriend at the time having that conversation, and Chris going, I need to have my freedom, I need to have this. Anyway, yeah, very, very similar. And over the last week, this lady has refound some song lyrics that she wrote for her new partner, basically in response to him saying, you know, I'm gonna need my freedom sometimes, I like to travel, da da da. And she wrote this beautiful song lyrics, and she sent me a film of her on singing with piano accompaniment, and it is literally, she said it just came out of her, it just flowed. But it is Christian's journey, it is my journey, it is Ray's journey as well, as her and her partner's sort of a love song to each other, for all her to him. It's just incredible. So she shared that with me this week, and she had found it because one of her spirit guides is a school friend of hers that died very young in a car crash. And she asked this friend, spirit friend, you know, I need to find these. In fact, she was looking for something else. That was part of the story. She was looking for something else, and said, look, friend, I need you to show me where this folder is. Where is this that I'm looking for? Because she'd moved house. Anyway, the friend spirit took her to, and she found instead this song, the song lyrics, and a whole heap of other things in a folder. So she didn't find what she thought she was looking for, but she's actually found the perfect thing that she needed. Anyway, she shared this song. So that's a huge metaphor for everything, isn't it? You know, what you think you're looking for is not actually what you need at that moment. And then also we had the song, which was just incredible. It was like literally gifted to her, and gifted to us now in Ray's. And it would make a great film soundtrack. And we have another song that was also gifted to Christian and I, that also flowed through the creator, and that is also going to be on the film soundtrack. Absolutely. So we're already getting us the soundtracks. And then this lady also shared with me that her partner he's an artist, as well as lots of other things, but he'd also painted this picture of two eagles. And for anyone and it's very beautiful, and he gave her this particular one as a gift when they got together, because she chose it. So these two things, there's a picture and this song, are just so, they were like created at that time for a purpose, a love. It was a love gift of exchanges between this couple, but they are now serving another purpose. Yeah, so again, this is this detailed story, but it's also sharing a much bigger story and illustrating a much bigger story of love, like the power of love and the power of allowing, like, love doesn't change wherever the person is or the energy is. And then on that kind of links, why I'm sharing all that is because it links when when Christian was 40, he was obviously missing, because he went missing when he was 27, but for his 40th birthday party, and what really started off our journey into the spiritual world, we had yeah, we held a 40th birthday party for Chris. So we had all his friends, we had family, all in a big marquee in our parents' house. And on the lead up, or on the run up to the party, there were two things that I suddenly wanted to find. It was like, I want to find these things, bit like my friend with her, like suddenly wanting to find something. And one was a book. Oh, here it is. One was a book, Mungo Park by Mark Duffield. And it was a book that Christian had shown me, he'd shared with me. And look, it's got all his annotations in there. Oh, you can't. Oh, yeah, look, there's all his writing. And I just had this sudden urge to find it, and to read it again, because I'd actually read it the first time when just as he'd left, or as I'd seen him, and I thought, oh my God, this is so dangerous. What the hell is he doing? Anyway, I was searching for this book in all over the place, and I was looking for a blue spine everywhere. And look, it's got a red spine. So what I was looking for, like, there's a message in here again, isn't it? All these films have these messages underlying. Again, like, what I was searching for wasn't actually what it was. Like, that was the illusion in my head, that it was a blue spine just because it was a blue front. I had it in my head. It's like, what's the truth here? Anyway, so we found that. And also, when Christian was 16, he and I had a joint birthday party, and for it he painted this mural of Jimi Hendrix. It's a black and white image of Jimi Hendrix. I'm just looking at the lion now, he's black and white. Anyway, he drew it, or he painted it, and he had it up after the party. So he had it up on the wall, and then after the party he had it above his bed in his bedroom. And when Mum and Dad sold the house, and this was when Christian knew he wasn't, when he returned from Africa, he wasn't going to return to the house where Mum and Dad were living in, because they were moving. He knew that. Anyway, when Mum and Dad showed the people who actually did buy the house, I think their son went with them, and he saw this picture of Jimi Hendrix, and he was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And Mum said, well, I'll leave it behind for you if you want, because I don't know what possessed us to say that, but she did. So she left that behind in Christian's bedroom. Anyway, so on the run up to the party, I was like, well, where's this other thing that was missing? It was like, right. And it was obviously Christian prompting me on a soul level that he wanted these things of his collected, these belongings of his collected, to be there at the party. And I understand now why. I've just literally understood why, because they held his energy imprint, like with his signet ring. The book and because he'd held it and he'd read it and he'd been engrossed in it, and his painting, they had his energy imprint, which explains why when we were at the party, I got everyone to stand in a circle, all holding hands. We had Lenny Kravitz, Let Love Rule, and it was a vision I'd seen a week or so before the party, so I knew I had to do it. And we all stood there and we basically called Christian home. But all his energy, the imprints, the objects, yeah, so the painting, I said to Mum, where is this? And she said, oh God, it was, so what would it have been? 12 years ago, 12 years later, she said, oh my goodness, this family, I mean, goodness knows if they've still got this painting. I mean, the son will now be at uni. He probably wouldn't have had any interest in having this still on the wall. Anyway, I wrote to the family, and I said, I don't suppose you've still got this painting that Christian did, da, da, da. Obviously it means something now that he's not around. And the father wrote back, he said, quite incredibly, I had thought about removing it, or we had everything redecorated and And the son left, and I took it down off the wall, and I thought, oh, what am I going to do with this? And he said, I still have it in our garage. There's a little bit of a tear in it, but come and get it. Please come and get it. And so I went to meet him, and I mean, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So after 12 years having that picture, and I don't have it at this house, so we haven't got any wall space still. But it's safe, and it's been repaired, and it appeared at Christian's party. So yeah, so at the party I said, look, 2 things have already been returned: the book, the painting. The third thing is Christian. And then yeah, we all stood in a circle and we all called him home. And then a couple of weeks later I started having lucid dreams of Chris, and the rest is in the history books. But yes, the returning of lost things. So yes, anyway, so from the beginning of the week, where it felt very much out of kilter, this readjustment with Chris, but he's just shown me again and again how connected we still are, how things are building, how everything that we've talked about and planned and visioned over the years, it's like really coming together. And we're being given this amazing support group who like, when we're following the lines back as to how they came to us, or their stories, or like, it's all knitting together so beautifully. It's like we've been living our lives in parallel, and now we are coming together and to create what we're creating now, which is yeah, there'll be more about that in the next few weeks, definitely. But it's that word of sisterhood, like the serpent sisterhood, we're so much stronger together. And it's been a lonely old time for me for all these years, really, until very recently, where I've been doing this work on my own with Chris, and dipping in and out of circles, but never really bonding with anyone in particular. And now that's the last probably 6 months, the bonds and the connections and the realizations that we've been working towards this moment all our lives. And probably we're all soul family, and this will have been on the cards right from the beginning. So I don't know if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh my god, I've been suddenly finding lost things, or I'm getting all these signs suddenly. Where is your home? Where are you supposed to be? Where are you being drawn towards? And if it's into Rays and into the work of the rescue mediumships and telling spirit stories and allowing them to release, then yeah, to come towards us, more the merrier. I think that is about it. That was quite a lot, as usual. Yeah, and another couple of things that have resurfaced this week from past is like the creation of a oracle deck, and also the writing of a book. And they, like, those have really come back again. So it's all the kind of the co-creations, the products, the offerings. It feels like we need to get those ready or in place, and just Chris's bones and belongings in Africa, and what we're doing here now, they're happening in parallel at the moment, and they will at some point go click and join together. But at the moment there's some separation which is needed. Like, I have to get, when you have to be ready, you have to be yourself in that vibration, ready to accept what you're desiring. It's like if you're given, say for example, if you suddenly win the lottery and you're not ready for all that money, it can completely break you. Whereas if you're ready for the vibration of money, and not ready for the vibration of money, no, that's totally wrong, the ready for that, the amount of money and the almost like the responsibility that comes with that amount of money, if you are ready for that, if you're ready to hold that amount of money, then it can bring joy, and it can spread out to so many more people than you, if you're willing to receive it in a way that is giving. You need to be in that vibration. And I think it's the same with this. This is what I'm getting through right as I'm speaking. I love doing these films because they are so live, and I am receiving stuff as I speak and work through it. So these films are a way of me getting clarity as well, which can feel frustrating for some viewers, I know. But that's just the way it is, and they have to be recorded. These have to be recorded. These thoughts and these realizations and the events that are happening, they need to be recorded. So yes, when myself and my team and the Raise community and what we offer, it has to be ready to receive all the people who are going to be affected when Chris's bones and belongings are returned, when that news hits. Because it's going to affect a lot of lives, an awful lot of lives. And there'll be people who are watching this on replay in years to come, and they will go, oh my goodness, yeah. That's when I had this big realization, when Chris's bones and belongings were found, and you found out about us, and you found out about Raise. So we, as a group, need to be totally ready. Not totally ready, because you learn as you go along, but you know, we have the basics, the foundations there. It feels like we're building our lighthouse, ready to receive everybody who needs to find us in the dark. Okay, lots of love. Oh no, I'm going to do Isis, sorry, for next week. So I wonder if you're kind of playing along, what came up for you this week with that? What did you find in your sisterhood? How did you find you were more prepared, you were more able than you thought? Let me know in the comments. So this week, so this is a card, Isis, for the week ahead, which will all be revealed in the next film. But okay, what's the week ahead? What do we need to know? How can you guide us? Ooh. Mother of life, nourishment of the golden grain mother. Oh, look, there's that. Oh, look at the symbols on there. There's that anchor upside. Oh, no, yes, the anchor. The wings. Very strong. Right, let me. Mother of life. I'm just going to read the first top line. It's from this oracle deck, Isis Oracle. Oh, hang on. Can't do my alphabet. I'm going the wrong way. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. We can sometimes fall into existing and doing rather than truly living. We only know that this has happened when suddenly our life seems dry, depleted, filled with tasks, or it feels like we are stuck in a rut or habit that may have been comfortable, but is becoming stifling and suppressing. Isis, the mother of life, holds the ability to restore even the most numb, resistant, and difficult circumstances and people back into life. She calls to you now, seeking to bestow gifts of life upon you. Be bold and brave, open your arms and receive. Ooh. Okay, so I wonder if there's, I wonder if this is speaking to you. filled with I have to admit, as I'm sitting here, I've got a meeting in a while, and I have a list of tasks longer than my arm, and I'm thinking, oh. I guess this week has actually been a reality check as well, in that for all of the things that Chris and I have been visioning and working on, it's bringing all of that visioning into the physical world can be like walking through treacle. It's so much easier on an energetic level. Things are like happening in an instant after you've done a lot of work, and it feels like we're now doing the same, but in the physical manifestation of these things. And yeah, there's a lot of, when you're working, when it's a business, but basically we are aiming for Raise to become, somebody described it the other day as a beacon organization, and that's exactly what it is. It's massive, like the potential Raise so the business, I guess, the organization as a separate energy from myself and Chris. It has its own vibration, its own energy, and it is like expanding and growing. And I'm having to be, somebody said it again, it's like other people are giving me stuff, because it's almost like I'm CEO at the top, overlooking it all, and just seeing it grow. It's taking on a life of its own, and it's huge. We have so many arms to this organization, and we're just like planting the seeds at the moment, and it feels like a big mountain at the moment, but I know, and I have trust and I have faith in its entirety happening, everything we've envisaged happening. But we need a huge investment, and that's part of the process this week, of planting those seeds, of calling in that huge investment, and it feels like it's from one source, like one person, one family. Like, if you're watching this, we'd really love to speak to you now if you want to support our work. Yeah, anyway, so there we go, Mother of Life. Lots of love, and I shall see you next week. I hope you have an interesting week. I hope you flow. I hope you find nourishment where you need to find it. Yeah, lovely. Good. Okay, lots of love. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.